Hello, and welcome to Anime Audio Commentary. Today I'll be commenting over episode 22 of Neon Genesis Evangelion. If you'd like to watch along, then start watching now. So, we open with the scene here of Asuka and Kaji sort of hanging out on a boat. Presumably this is before the events of, I believe it was episode 8 where Asuka was initially introduced. So this is prior to her being transferred over to the Japanese branch of Nerve. So as per usual with Asuka when she's around Kaji, she's really trying to just hit on him and try to make something happen, but Kaji has the presence of mind not to fool around with the kid. So notably, Kaji's excuse of, like, you're not grown up enough, and Asuka childishly exclaiming, I am grown up enough, really just sort of proves his point. So now we have a scene of Asuka as a much younger child, presumably at a funeral, and there's talk about a contact experiment, presumably with an Evangelion, and how it sort of screwed up her mother. It's bad enough that the mother is treating, like, a stuffed doll as though it were Asuka, and is sort of like chastising the doll for not eating, saying, you know, that girl over there, Asuka will make fun of you if you don't eat your vegetables. I'd imagine that would really injure a person mentally to witness something like that. Like, I can say with a fair degree of certainty that mentally I don't think I would walk away from something like that unscathed. So back in the present day, it seems like Asuka was just sort of thinking about all that stuff, and as a result, she's not doing very well on the most recent sync test. Notably, Ritsuko is rather callous about this, saying that they don't have time to waste on this, and that if Asuka's gonna screw things up, then they just need to focus on fixing Unit 0. And granted, it's not like that's a bad approach, but it's just the callous disregard for Asuka. It's not even to say that she's been the most reliable, but to just disregard her entirely, it doesn't sit right with me here. And speaking of things not sitting right with people, Misato's sort of pontificating on the Evangelions and how it's sort of messing with things man should not mess with, and they're essentially doing again what caused the second impact. So Misato's having a sort of clandestine talk with one of the guys from the bridge, And he's sort of, I guess, sharing some information on the down low about what's going on. Granted, he can only really share information like Nerve's budget has been doubled and like the powers that be are still pushing them to do more. Meanwhile, Asuka's trying to call Kaji, and she's doing so with very little success. She likely does not know what grisly fate has already befallen him. Asuka is also notably very jealous upon seeing Shinji and Rei interacting without her. It seems to me that there's a perfect storm of events brewing that'll just kick Asuka in the teeth at a time when she really doesn't need something like that to happen. So things are very tense back at Misato's apartment, especially between Asuka and everyone else. So Asuka is not only just sort of passive aggressive to everyone, but then when other people do the things she deigns not to, she just can't help but prod at them. She's too good to pick up the phone herself, but when Shinji does, she mocks him for it. So notably, Shinji also, I guess, misinterprets who was calling for Asuka. He automatically assumes it's Asuka's mother, but we know that this is not the case. So Asuka very nearly starts actually talking about what's going on before, I guess, she thinks better of it and calls Shinji a loser again. She's even taking it so far as to not bathe in the same water that Shinji and Misato use. Like, I understand wanting a little personal space and how stifling it can be to live with people. So Asuka breaks down almost entirely, and I think the notable thing to take away there is that she says, most of all, I hate myself. Notably, this carries over into the sync ratio text the next day, where it turns out she's even worse than before. So Ritsuko thinks to herself that, we need to replace the pilot, once again callously disregarding anything that's going on, despite Misato saying, she's not feeling well. So even as Misato tries to present a solution, Ritsuko just sort of picks at her, similarly to how Asuka picks at Shinji. You know, it's just not productive in a professional environment to nitpick like that. So we have this scene of Asuka and Rei both sitting in the elevator, not saying anything to each other and just sort of standing there. It seems like Asuka wants to start something, but she doesn't want to make the first move. But of course, Rei is totally oblivious to all of that, so it's very likely that she won't start anything. So I guess Rei blinks first and offers Asuka some unsolicited advice about piloting the Eva. And granted, her advice is, as far as I can tell as the viewer, correct. But Asuka naturally doesn't take it very well. Naturally, her rant devolves into ragging on Shinji. So interestingly enough, Asuka is taking the time to chastise Unit 2 itself. And the way the scene is set, it's almost framed as a sort of conversation switching between views of Asuka and the Eva itself. Unfortunately, before Asuka can, I guess, come to an understanding with her Eva, an angel emerges, and it's, as of right now, just chilling out in the upper orbit of the Earth. Conveniently, it's outside of engagement range for any weapons that Nerve might bring to bear against it. Interestingly, I think this angel looks the most angel-like of those we've seen so far. It sort of looks like a stylized pair of wings made of light. So, things are already going sort of sideways. Misato gave Asuka some orders, Asuka disregarded it, and is going to engage the angel as best she can. Misato figures, well, just go ahead with it for all I care. Ritsuko, on the other hand, starts looking for a replacement in earnest. So it seems like no matter what, this is really going to be Asuka's last chance. So now that Asuka's on the surface, it's absolutely pouring rain, and there's no sign of the angel at all. It's far too far away at this point. Asuka's giving herself a little bit of a pep talk, almost like Shinji's mantra of, I mustn't run away. So Asuka's got the positron rifle, but unfortunately, the angel is still out of range. Unfortunately, the angel is within range for it to attack. And rather than using like a particle beam like the fifth angel, it appears to be a psychic attack. So notably, the music in the background is the Hallelujah chorus, which is a rather joyous piece of music for what's going on. Asuka in the cockpit seems to be greatly suffering under the angel's attack. This is a fairly unsettling sequence when you juxtapose the music with Asuka and the Evangelion clutching their heads and with those words flashing on screen in between segments of Asuka writhing in pain. So notably, even though as the control center scrambles to disconnect Asuka and Misato orders her to retreat, and she's suffering greatly, she's still adamant in her refusal to run away because that would mean dishonor. And, well, I think she put it best. Dishonor is worse than death. So at this point, Rei is not able to hit the angel with the positron rifle, and Asuka's growing weaker. It seems almost like, as Ritsuko put it, that the angel is trying to analyze Asuka, but in a very blunt and insensitive way. So now we're flashing back to, I guess, select moments from Asuka's past. A lot of her memories relate to her mother and the lack of attention her mother gave her. Notably, Asuka declares that she doesn't want to remember these horrible things. So this almost seems like the sequence Shinji underwent when he dissolved into the LCL fluid. So Asuka's almost sort of struggling to assert that she is in fact the real Asuka, as though it's up for debate. So all of Asuka's, I guess, worst memories and inclinations are coming to bear. Her constant rejection by Kaji, rejection of her in favor of Shinji. There was one scene where it was almost like she was drowning in a sea of people. Almost as if she was losing her sense of self. So there are these juxtaposed phrases of Asuka saying, I don't need anyone, I can only rely on myself. And that doll her mother was treating as Asuka declares that she is lying. So things are now, I guess, really entering dangerous territory as Unit 2 shuts down and all its life support systems go down as well. Shinji even offers to go outside and fight, but Gendo and Futsuki veto that. Notably, Gendo tells Rei to go grab the Lance of Longinus. Futsuki says, you can't be serious. So Misato objects to the plan under, I guess, a false pretense of what it was that caused the second impact. And based on Gendo's reaction, she, I guess, slowly hypothesizes a little bit more about precisely what's going on. She's not reaching any concrete conclusions, but that was a non-insignificant puzzle piece in the wider mystery. So notably, Gendo says that, we can't move time backwards, but we can choose the path moving forward. So it seems like using the Lance of Longinus wasn't out of the question, but taking the initiative to use it for something like this is, I guess, acting a bit rash. So Futsuki says that Sealy will really disapprove of this, but it doesn't seem like Gendo cares. So I guess for whatever else is going on, Gendo and Seely are working at cross purposes here. So Unit 0 hurls the Lance of Longinus at the Angel. Interestingly enough, it manages to hit the Angel where the proton rifle, or positron rifle rather, failed to do so. So the Lance of Longinus pierced the Angel, reached escape velocity, and is now entering a lunar orbit. So for all intents and purposes, it's stuck on the moon. And it seems like this would be a real wrench in the works of whatever it is that Seely wants to achieve. But it also seems like this is an outcome that Gendo, if he doesn't want it, he's okay with it. So it's almost as an afterthought that everybody starts tending to Asuka. I guess they couldn't do it while the Angel was still out and about, but so Shinji tries to offer Asuka a small comfort, and she really doesn't take it well. I guess worst of all is that Rei was the one responsible for saving her. Alright, well that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then by all means, tune in for the next one.